Call the meeting to order at 6:30. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Before we start, I Boy Scout here to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Why don't you tell us your name first? Joseph. Okay, what troop are you with, Joseph? All right, thank you. Why don't you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. So today is National Boy Scout Day to honor those who are trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, cheerful, thrifty, and brave. I believe he's all of those things. Some famous scouts include Martin Luther King Jr., John F. Kennedy, Steven Spielberg, Neil Armstrong, Michael Jordan, Jimmy Buffett, 5 U.S. presidents, and 180 U.S. astronauts, and at least one Mayor of Antioch that I know of. So today, to honor our scouts, let's all follow their lead and do good deeds. And so I appreciate you coming in, and make sure you tell the rest of your troop that we appreciate all you guys do, and thank you for participating in all our events. Okay. Roll call, please.
Trustee Pierce,
Present.
trustee Mason,
Here.
trustee Peterson,
Present.
trustee Luther,
Here.
trustee Herman,
Here.
trustee Dominier,
Here.
Mayor Gurke.
Present. We have Trustee Pierce on Zoom. We have some acknowledgements. February is a busy month according to my acknowledgement list. First is February 1st is Chinese New Year. February 2nd was Groundhog's Day, which I don't know if it's a short or long winter, but 6 more weeks. Okay. As I said, National Boy Scout Day is today. We celebrate Abraham Lincoln's birthday on February 12th. A reminder for all you gentlemen out there that Valentine's Day is next week, February 14th. President's Day, February 20th, is also American Heart Month. I think Trustee Pierce can appreciate that as well. And it is also Black History Month for the month of February. So we're just making those acknowledgements today. We have one appointment of somebody to the Historic Preservation Committee. She is not here this evening, I don't believe. Is she? Okay. So her name is Mary McWilliams. I would need a motion and a second to confirm the appointment, and then Lori will administer the oath with her. That's when she's available.
Second.
All right. Motion trustee Bluthart, second trustee Dominion. Roll call, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Herman,
Yes.
Dominier,
Yes.
6 voting yes, motion carries. Next is the list of citizens wishing to address the board. So if you haven't signed up, now is your chance. I'll pass the list to Madam Clerk, who will discuss the procedure.
The opportunity to speak to the board is provided for members of the public who have a comment to make about the business of the board. The board appreciates hearing from stakeholders and values your thoughts and opinions. The board strives to make the best decisions for the village. Public input is very helpful. The board must protect the civility and decorum of this meeting. Please be respectful for the duties of the board and democratic process of your comments tonight. Please state your name and address your comments to the board. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please be factual and courteous, and the board requests that you not make statements that are personally disrespectful or condescending to members of the board or staff. To the extent multiple speakers are addressing a single issue, the mayor reserves the right to limit the number of speakers making comment of nature and/or limit the amount of time for public comment. The board does not respond to comments or attempt to answer questions during the public comment period. We have one person signed up, Sue Stevens.
Good evening. I moved to Antioch in mid-1980s, and in those 35 plus years, I've attended village board meetings many times, both in person and in most recent years being able to watch them on YouTube or live on YouTube. But in all that time, I've never felt the need to come to a meeting and speak. I wasn't able to attend last month's meeting. I was out of town, but I did watch the meeting. And that's the reason I'm here tonight. And I want to respond to some statements that were made by Trustee Berman in the speech she made last month. I have some notes here just so that I can accurately reflect her comments in there. So Ms. Berman insinuated that our local schools are teaching harmful ideological theories. She made reference to that 5 times in her speech. I was an educator in our local schools for over 30 years. Some of the trustees had students, children who were my students. in there.
Excuse me.
Are we stopping the mic?
I'm
Public comment is available for everyone under their First Amendment rights. We've been through this many times, so thank you very much.
And I continue to work in the district as a substitute teacher. And I resent the implication that our schools are teaching harmful theories to our students. Ms. Berman presented this as though it were a fact. However, to again quote what she said during her speech was, hearsay is not fact. To the hundreds of dedicated teachers, support staff, and hardworking educators in our community, I want to say that I know you're working diligently, pouring your hearts and souls into educating our students. You should not have to hear these kinds of comments at a public meeting, accusations from an elected official who's supposed to represent everyone in our community. To the village board, I sincerely hope that you do not make a public statement against those supposed teachings as Ms. Berman suggested. In regards to one final statement that she made, she said that the biggest draw to a community is an exceptional school system where all are welcome. I can't agree with you more. However, denigrating school board members and educators and making such accusations at a public village board meeting is not the way to accomplish that goal. Thank you.
We have 2 items on the consent agenda. Is there any motion to remove either of those items before we vote?
I make the motion to remove item 1 and 2.
I'm sorry, did you say 1 and 2?
Yes, I did 1 and 2.
Second.
All right, I have a motion from trustee Pierce and a second from trustee Peterson.
And just a point of order, Your Honor, I don't think you need a motion and a second. The consent agenda just requires one trustee to object to it.
All right. So we'll go through the first item. We'll go in one item at a time. First is the approval of the January 25th, 2023 regular meeting minutes as presented. We have a motion, trustee Dominiac, second trustee Bluthart. Discussion, trustee Pierce.
I have no discussion, just want to vote on it.
There's no discussion. Any discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Pierce,
No.
Mason,
We're voting on
on the minutes.
the minutes as presented.
Yes,
Yeah, yes.
Peterson,
Abstain.
Luther,
What the objections to the minutes are, or we don't want to have a discussion
We can discuss it.
We're already called the roll.
We were given
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Dominiac,
No.
3 voting yes, 2 voting no, 1 abstaining, so approval carries.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Next is approval and resolution of a special event liquor license for the Teamster Horsemen, Chapter 25 North, for their St. Patrick's Laugh Off event, March 17th, 2023, waiving all fees, resolution 23-04. Do I have a motion and a second? So move. Motion trustee, second trustee Peterson. Discussion on this item. Trustee Pierce, do you have any discussion on this item?
Yes, Your Honor. I just want to bring to the attention of the board. Less than a month ago, I had the pleasure of attending one of their functions at their facility, and it was very impressive, the work they've done in there, and I had a very good time there. And I would encourage other members of the board, when they have more events, to try to attend, just so they can get a flavor of what this group is doing and what they're about. I think it was a very positive thing for me, and I think they're doing a good job. And I just wanted to say that publicly.
Thank you. Anyone else on this side? Anyone on this side of the discussion items? Okay, roll call, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
yes,
6 voting yes, motion carries. On to the regular business. First item on regular business is consideration and approval of payments of accounts payable as prepared by staff in the amount of $233,062.84. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Motion trustee Peterson, second trustee Dominiac. Any discussion on this item? All right, roll call, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
yes,
6 voting yes, motion carries. Next item is consideration and approval of a resolution authorizing the village administrator to accept J.J. Henderson and Sons, Inc. proposal to furnish labor, materials, and equipment to perform clarifier slab replacement to the wastewater treatment plant east clarifier, resolution number 23-05. Do I have a motion and a second? Motion trustee Masek,
Second.
second trustee Bourbon. We have Administrator Keim here if there's any questions about what was in the packet for this matter. So discussion on this, trustee Pierce,
No discussion, Your Honor.
trustee Masek. Trustee, no, any discussion, trustee, no? Trustee Dominiac?
Administrator Keim, could you just quickly summarize why you selected this company to take care of it?
Certainly, due to the unique circumstances of this repair, it being a critical piece of infrastructure at a live wastewater plant, it becomes an emergent situation. This is not a repair that should wait. In addition to that, J.J. Henderson was the constructor of the plant. They have unique knowledge of the plant, its processes. They're highly qualified. The village had an outstanding relationship with them. So they had offered to partner with us to help assist in the finalization of the design, the repair, as well as help us understand the different means and methods that would be required to accomplish a task in a live wastewater plant of this nature. And in my mind, that makes them uniquely qualified. In addition, they're highly reputable. They do water wastewater projects. They're one of the best in the area of doing these things. They've recently completed a similar project. I think it was in 2020 in Fox River Grove or somewhere down there. So they have unique experience. I've alluded to us needing to move on this quickly and suggesting to the board that we waive formal bidding requirements. I would not normally ask for that, but for the unique nature of this plant and the opportunity that presents itself with a contractor that understands how this was done originally, with their records of how the backfill was placed and the things that exist under the subsurface and where things are at, puts them just in a very unique situation in my mind. So I am recommending that the board approve this item. Know that this is not a normal situation. In every other situation, due to those circumstances, that's why I'm recommending we do this.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted it to be in the record.
I just want to clarify, didn't we give them emergency kind of authorization prior meetings? Get this done before rain starts?
Yeah.
So I don't understand why this is being brought up when we already agreed, yeah, this has to be done.
Due to the dollar amount.
So you say the dollar amount, that we agreed this has to be done, bring the dollar amount. And we get moving on it, we already agreed those, so. We keep nitpicking stuff that we agree that's gotta get done, it's gotta get done. We can't keep going down Belay Street all the time. We're gonna run into a quagmire, this figure's gonna grow by delaying.
Robert? All right, I think that's it for the questions.
Just for a quick clarification on something, how are we doing on the insurance claim for that? Is there any progress there?
Yes, the latest proposal was forwarded to the insurance adjuster, along with all of the other, there's other expenses that have happened here with testing and engineering, and you've already authorized the equipment to be removed to get that going. There will be another item will be coming with a pumping system. It's not included in the bid, but there is a need to have a reserve capacity once this project starts. We're gonna have, it's possible if we need excess flow, we'll have to divert some pumpage. So there is another amount coming, and I will bring that back to the board. But due to the timing and nature, I feel it prudent that we authorize this contract at this particular point in time.
No, I understand that. I'm just asking where we're at on the insurance, if it's looking likely, not.
We've got every indication that there's going to be coverage, maybe not for the full amount. This amount includes installation of a subsurface groundwater extraction system, so we can control the groundwater. That's a new facility, and that is going to be our cost. But the majority of the slab repair, much of the equipment removal and replacement, some of the dewatering, that's necessary, this will be covered. I don't have the exact amount for you,
No, I'm not.
but yeah, we are making progress. We submit all the invoices and lobby for as much coverage as we can possibly get.
Thank you.
Questions, comments? All right, not roll call, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Luther.
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Minnick.
Yes.
6 voting yes, motion carries. I'm gonna move, this item 5 is probably gonna be a lengthier item. I'm gonna move items, item number 6 up on the agenda. The next item is, I'm gonna move 6, then we'll go back to 5. So consideration and approval of an ordinance adding a Class J BYOB license for Agnes Velikas, DBA Mia Valentina House of Creation, to be located at 906 Main Street, ordinance number 23-2-2. I need a motion and a second, waiving the second. Motion trustee Mason,
Second.
second trustee Peters. Any discussion or questions? I believe the applicant's here for any questions about this. She was here last time. All right, if not, roll call, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Adorable girls. Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Luther.
Yes.
Berman,
Yes.
Minnick.
Yes.
6 voting yes, motion carries. Next item, consideration and approval of a resolution authorizing the village administrator to purchase a pavilion from Chicago Lightworks in the amount of $380,336.20. This is resolution number 23-01. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Motion trustee Dominiac,
Second.
second trustee Peterson. No discussion? Trustee Pierce.
I really don't have any discussion. I think we've discussed this already several times. I just will say, I know a lot of people will not like the price. But I think in the big picture and the big scheme, if we are building a focal point for our village, we need to dream a little. We need to think about the future and not just today. We've got people willing to spend money on a lot of things in this village that people object to. But the money, if it's for the best interest of the village, should be spent. I think this will end up being a lifetime asset to our community. So I will be voting yes on this.
Right, thank you, trustee Basic.
This is for the grand scheme. Because I think this has been debated to death. But the grand scheme, and this is for upcoming budget talks, is we spend this money, playground, gazebo. Are we gonna put any type of future maintenance for our parks in the budgets to cover when a $20,000 park breaks, a pump breaks in the parks? Has that been thought of?
See you're itching to get up. Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, you're spot on. There will be additional maintenance costs for a facility like this. And future budgets will have to account for, additional landscaping gardeners. Our certified pool operators will have to think about, maintenance requirements of the water feature. So it's a very good comment, and yes, there will be additional costs to maintain a facility like this. I think the expectation will be this facility will be maintained at a level that's, with it being right in the middle of our downtown, it's the expectation I think is going to be higher for this particular park. So, I would answer it that way.
It's gonna be, I know it's gonna be I'm sorry, it's gonna be a challenge.
Trustee Peterson.
Well, I agree with trustee Pierce. I think we're building this for the future. And we want this to be something that's a focal point. People will meet here. They'll have photos taken here. Our town's gonna live in this park, and I love what we're doing, and I support it 100%, and I'm gonna vote yes on this.
Thank you, Trustee Luther.
Well, this has been driving me crazy in my head, trying to figure out how to state this. The overall design of the park, I'm in favor of. The overall concept of the park, I'm in favor of. My biggest concern with this pavilion is the cost, number one, and also the overall look of it, which obviously we can all differ upon what we find the right fit. But one of the main concerns I'm having is that we're spending, we could do a pavilion that maybe isn't as fancy for about half the price, but we can't make that decision later. We're forced to make this decision now to spend almost 400 and with the installation was at 440 some thousand on this pavilion. And my concern is, as this park continues, if we have overruns, if we have something else, we might have to start making cuts down the road, and we can't come back later and decide to do a cheaper pavilion or do something else. So we might be forced to make tougher cuts on something else as we move forward if costs keep escalating and everything else. So I think this pavilion in this park will be fine. It will be a gorgeous park. I'm just not happy with the cost structure of this pavilion and would have liked to see us do something different. So I will be voting no.
Trustee Berman.
I have no further comment.
Trustee Dominiac.
I have no further comment other than at another time I'd like to continue the discussion about putting something in the center for elevation.
Can't hear a
We're
word
not
you
gonna
said.
raise the whole thing up. I just think we need to both be done with it.
I'm sorry, what'd she say?
Yeah, I can't hear you. I couldn't hear either, Scott.
I said, I asked that in the future, we have a discussion about in the middle, putting up some type of an elevation as we discussed. But since we're not elevating the whole pavilion structure, I'm ready to vote on this as it is.
All right. So if I call the vote, we're ready to vote. All right, roll call, please.
Pierce,
Yes.
Mason,
Yes,
Peterson,
Yes.
Luther,
No,
Berman,
No.
Dominiac.
Yes,
All right, 4 voting yes, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, we did number 6 already, is the consideration and approval of an ordinance granting a special use for a cannabis facility for the property located at 510 Main Street. This is ordinance number 23-2-3. I entertain a motion and a second waiving the second reading.
Yes. Thank you, Your Honor. Again, this matter comes before you.
I'll make a motion waiving the second reading.
Motion, Trustee Bluthart. Second.
Second.
Second, Trustee Peterson. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. This matter comes before you again for a special use for a proposed cannabis facility. The applicant comes before you this evening for properties 510 Main Street. The applicant is requesting cannabis facility for a 6,500 square foot building. They're proposing a 3,500 square foot cannabis facility. The applicant's actually here this evening to answer any questions you have. Staff did take this to the planning commission. It was recommended for approval by a vote of 6-0 by the planning commission. The biggest aspect, based on our proposed special use, we did determine there will be no basically negative impacts on adjacent properties. As it relates to parking, the applicant's proposing 45 parking spaces. So staff did incorporate fairly extensive analysis. We are making a favorable recommendation this evening, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
All right, trustee Pierce.
What does the traffic safety report say? Has there been done one? Because I picture being right next to the railroad track. This is going to be just like our famous Starbucks coffee, where everybody cuts across the road and almost has accidents all the time. So I'm a little curious about the traffic study.
Well, there was specifically no traffic study as part of this proposal, trustee Pierce, because the applicant's not proposing any variation or modifications because of the existing access point. No, staff is not requesting any proposed improvements working with IDOT, i.e. like a de-acceleration lane, something like that. We do not believe that would be appropriate based on the additional volume of traffic. I mean, this generally would handle this as obviously retail, but perhaps a little more intense retail. But nevertheless, we do not anticipate a substantial increase in the volume of traffic along Main Street based on a 3,500 square foot dispensary. As I've already outlined, and I think the applicant can provide some additional illumination. There are a number of dispensaries which are opening along the Wisconsin-Illinois border, specifically in Richmond and Winthrop Harbor, potentially Wadsworth. So we do not anticipate a substantial uptick in traffic on Route 83, based on the fact we did not request the applicant to work with a traffic engineer on a dedicated traffic study for this 3,500 square foot dispensary.
So because Richmond and Winthrop Harbor are getting these, we're waiving any requirements of traffic studies or being concerned about the safety of people trying to turn across the highway. When the trains got traffic backed up for miles, our famous Antioch strangler, that's one of the strangle points.
Well, I'll allow the applicant to perhaps provide you some additional illumination or explanation of whether a traffic study is required for the Richmond facility or Winthrop Harbor. So I'm not familiar with those projects, but perhaps the applicant can provide you a direct answer to that question.
I hope he can, because I was relying upon you. Thank you.
All right. Trustee Masek.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with this. I think it's gonna be a bunch of, all the other ones opening at once. It's gonna be a convenience thing, and most of the places allow 1-2 people in the stores at a time. They don't, it's not like they go at 10 people at one time. So you go down, so I was gonna be an investor. You go down to Colorado. There might be 1-2 cars in the parking lot down there, but and when it starts getting oversaturated with the buildings, people don't patronize. They'll get what they want. They don't go there every day. So it's just a different type of atmosphere. So I don't see a problem. We put the ordinance out there to place it there, so it wouldn't be in downtown. We put the signage restrictions up, so I think we put everything in place to let this happen.
Thank you, trustee Peterson.
I agree with trustee Masek. The village has approved one of these facilities and they're here, they seem to be in compliance, so. I don't see a problem with it either.
Trustee Luther,
As someone who used to get his Christmas prime rib at that packing house, I can say that parking lot's always a nightmare at Christmas, but never had a problem. That being said, I'm glad to see this, coming through, and as we're playing catch up now with everyone else, and I hate seeing these billboards in Antioch getting people to go down to Brown Lake, so the sooner we can get a dispensary open here, it's more tax dollars for us to find more facilities.
trustee Berman,
As trustee Peterson said, yes, the village has approved dispensary. However, the last time that the gentleman from 280 East LLC was here, I found it, how he approached the board, to be extremely disrespectful, and it was insulting, and numerous trustees felt that way. Not only was a liquor license and gambling license requested in addition to a lounge, which the Village of Antioch does not allow. Then when the question was posed on whether or not any other surrounding towns had been approached by 280 East LLC, the initial response was no, which was a lie. When the second round of comments, I'm not sure if it was second or third, came around, and I questioned it, and I stated, did you or did you not approach Richmond? And they had. The January 2023 Economic Development Report, which was last month, also stated that the applicant was still seeking a lounge. He was informed on the 9/28/2022 board meeting that we do not allow it. The February 2nd, 2023 Community Development Report states specifically that the applicant is not requesting cannabis lounge at this time. I don't know if it's just me, but that sounds to me like get your foot in the door and then ask for the lounge later. We've already stated that we don't allow it, and I feel that that's even more disrespectful towards us to continue to push something that we've already decided is not going to exist in our town. It not only is disrespectful to the board, it's disrespectful to our community as a whole. We are a family-friendly oriented small town, and I'm sorry, a lounge is not going to be a good fit. I don't appreciate the way that the board was initially approached. And for that reason, I will be voting no.
thank you. Trustee Dominiac,
I'm really struggling with this because I know that we do have an ordinance in place, which I voted against. So I'm struggling with how to respond to this, but who owns this building?
Oh, actually,
Who owns the building?
I believe it's a company incorporated. It's a resident of Antioch, I believe. I'll allow the applicant to basically, maybe explain. I believe they're under contract to purchase the building, but I'll allow the applicant to outline that.
So currently, 280 has that building under contract for purchase contingent upon getting a special use permit.
Okay, because I know the current owner said he never bought that building for cannabis, so. I guess he's not buying it to have cannabis, you're buying it to have cannabis.
That's correct.
Interesting, thank you.
Or that's what I'm hoping.
Are there any other options? That's all I have for you, sir, if anybody else, after I'm done. Are there any other options? Has anybody else approached the village? Is this our only option?
Yeah, there have been some very preliminary discussions about potentially other cannabis dispensaries, but there's been no other application, no other site plan, no specific discussions about specific sites with detailed proposals. So to answer your question shortly, some very general discussions, but nothing definitive and specifically no applications have been submitted for another special use.
Thank you. I raise that because I don't know if everybody on the board is familiar with the entire ordinance, but we did pass the ordinance was passed. I want to say we, because I voted against it. That there would only be one. So I mean, obviously, by the time someone else comes along, I most likely will not be sitting in this chair, but I would advise that we not turn Antioch into a place where there's multiple dispensaries. One of the concerns that I have about this location is in the state statute, it specifies that you can have to be a certain distance from a school or a park. And this obviously is not near a school or a park, but it's my understanding and belief that it's close to a playground. And while we do not have anything in place in the ordinance now, it's unfortunate because for me, a playground is the same as a park or a school, because that's where children are. So I'm really struggling with this location. I think the other thing is just for clarity, Trustee Berman, I know we don't want a lounge, but I think that the debate or the discussion about this previously was that the ordinance was silent on that. Is that true, Attorney Vasselli?
It is.
So then I would propose that we bring forward an amendment to the ordinance at the next meeting for discussion to specifically state that we don't want a lounge, because that was the key driver of decisions by some of the board members, if memory serves me correctly, from the board that passed that we adamantly did not want that. So I would like to ask that we discuss that at another meeting, bring it forward and discuss if we want to do that.
On the committee of the whole.
A committee of the whole, obviously,
I just-
unless the rest of the board feels we can just go right to the board. So I by the time it's my turn, you'll know how I'm to focus. Right now, I don't know, because we do have a standing ordinance, but I don't think this is the right location.
Thank you. All right, I'll go around one more time. If anybody has any comments. I lost Trustee Pierce's. Go.
Here, I can hear you.
Do you have any other comments?
First of all, since it was a unanimous vote by the Planning and Zoning Board to overturn that, it would have to be what, a super majority, Mr. Vasselli?
It would be a supermajority vote is required under state law to overturn a planning and zoning or zoning board of appeals recommendation.
And how many votes would that be then? Would that be 5?
5 votes.
Okay.
The motion on the, yes, and we have a great clerk. The motion on the floor is to approve. So that motion would have to be ran through to the end, and then a motion to deny would have to be made and seconded.
Correct. Next question is back to Michael Garrigan. What is the estimated yearly revenues on a cannabis facility?
I don't have those numbers. I mean, again, I think it'd be appropriate to allow the applicant, based on what his projections are. I know, obviously, there were discussions that, it's not a secret that the cannabis facility in Motherline was generating over 6 figures in sales taxes. So I will allow the applicant to maybe provide just some rough projections, but staff doesn't have any actual hard projections of what this 3,500 square foot dispensary would generate. Are you talking about gross sales, or are you talking about sales tax, the actual taxes to the village, Trustee Pierce?
Okay, and let me ask you, back building upon the lounge facility at a later date, since they're only using half of the building, if the village doesn't amend their code, which Trustee Dominiak suggested, and I think it could be handled at a board meeting because it's a simple amendment, then they could convert that other half into a lounge or a bar.
Well, obviously, if they use additional percentage of the building, they would be required to probably first come back for a proposal to expand the parking lot. There's been discussions back and forth, and that's understood that a major expansion of the building, in words, utilizing the full building, would require potentially another review by the plan commission and village board for the additional parking that would be required. As it relates to the lounge, I'll probably defer to the village attorney, how to handle that based on the current way the village's cannabis ordinance is drafted. So,
So in answer, they're already in discussions with you about expanding their facility.
no, for the record, they're not. For the record, they are not. Staff took the initiative and advised them because there's additional square footage. We did advise them, obviously, any expansion into the building would require additional parking, but based on our discussions, there's never been any specific discussions with the applicant about expanding their current proposed 3,500 square foot dispensary.
I would also suggest, along with discussing, however the attorney advises us, we have to do it. A lounge change to the ordinance, changing the ordinance to also state a bar and a lounge can't, or bar and a cannabis facility cannot be built together. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Would you want to address any of that, Jimmy?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Thank you, trustee. Thank you, Mr. Garrett. We aren't talking about a lounge.
I know we're not talking about a
I know,
lounge.
but trustee,
We're
I don't
talking,
think that's sharp,
we're
but not
talking about future discussions about a lounge, future discussions about converting the rest of that building, whatever they want to convert it into,
I
because
understand
it
that.
only makes sense. If I was a businessman, I would be trying to build as much as I could there. So I think the village needs to take steps in the future to protect themselves a little bit more. And then let the vote, which is a required 5 to overturn this, which will not occur, to occur and be done with this.
So I'll suggest that whether it's on the next agenda or the first in March, that we have a cow item added for just review of the ordinance. Okay. Trustee Basic, anything else?
Yes, so I specifically remember when we passed this ordinance, we had a big fight that no lounges. So someone's gotta go back and read those minutes. We said, we're gonna do this. We put the location up, no lounges. So I don't even know why this is even a discussion. It should be in the ordinance, no lounges. So there's no lounges. That's how I remember, because I remember trustee Polis at the time says, yeah, I'll pass it with no lounges, because it just doesn't, the lounge doesn't even doesn't make sense that you're gonna go through there. And, you know, the one thing I will say, people vote, you know, we put it in place for it to vote. State of Illinois says it's legal, and, you know, it's just, it should be already in there, no lounges. And to sit there and say no bar, no, you know, kick that rock down the road when it happens, but this gentleman wants what he wants. And that's the building, we all said, we'll pass an ordinance, we'll put it out there, and regardless who owns the building now is irrelevant. The gentleman wants to buy the building, he wants to put it out there. It's legal in the state of Illinois. Other companies are doing, other towns are doing it. It's, you know, everybody says, well, there's no way to catch someone, you know, that's intoxicated. I think it's easier to catch someone intoxicated. It stinks. So, and they do have a roadside test to see if you're impaired for the use of marijuana that the police use. So there are ways to do stuff. So it's, you know, take it home and hope you're safe, just like, you know, people sell them at gas stations. That's why we threw it out of town and not the industrial section. Couldn't put it there because there's schools. Couldn't put it to anywhere else. We put signage in the ordinance restrictions. We threw it on the outside of town that wouldn't affect anybody. So I don't see it. I just don't see an issue. It should be in our minutes that no lounges, or in our ordinance already, no lounges. So I don't know if you got the ability to look it up. It should be already in there.
I'll request specifically, Madam Clerk, pull the legislative record for those meetings.
I know for a fact, as trustee Polis said, I'll do this only that we put it in, no lounges.
Sure. And then, you know, it gets into the, I guess, legal interpretation, you know, something
Right,
just
so,
specifically
you know, we
stated
don't-
versus.
And the whole point is, we don't allow smoking in facilities. You can't smoke cigarettes, you can't smoke e-cigarettes, it's not supposed to, it just makes sense with the whole thing.
Sure.
So if you're gonna, if we're gonna do this, yeah, we do it, it's legal, we do this, go take it home, go, whatever people do with it. You know, I've got friends that are dying of cancer, if they need it, they'll do it. They have a facility, they don't have to drive all the way to Mongolian or wherever the heck they have to go. And then the village gets the tax revenue, whatever it is. We don't have to create new ways to generate revenue.
Trustee Peterson,
I have no further comments, Your Honor.
trustee Luther. Afraid is this, this might be your last chance. Okay, trustee Berman.
Again, I would like to just state again why, in regards to my last comment. Just to be clear, it had nothing to do with whether or not it's legal or illegal. It has to do with the fact that the applicant approached this board disrespectfully. And I just don't see that's being the best fit or the best interest of Antioch. Someone that approaches us in that way. I think that's a very, very bad start. And I think that when we're dealing with the cannabis industry, we need to be cautious. And I think that allowing this after everything that's gone on, I mean, that's 4 months of pushing cannabis launch, 4 months. So, like I said, that's what my comment had to do with.
Trustee Dominiac.
Yeah, I think if memory serves me correctly, when the applicant came prior to us previously, the revenue was about 200 to 300,000. It wasn't a whole lot compared to what you were saying earlier. But that was the revenue to us, not the sales. Trustee Masek, you know, you and I, and obviously Trustee Pearson were on the board when we passed that. I think what happened is that because it's not in the ordinance, I looked, I think what happened is that the state, we had the right from the state to approve a dispensary, a craft grower, manufacturing. There were like 5 or 6 different businesses, but there wasn't anything specific about the lounge, but we did say that we do not want any lounges. So that might have been where the miss was, is that there was no specific business about a cannabis lounge coming from the state. So that's the only thing I can think of.
I specifically thought
But I went through, I couldn't find it, I read it a couple times. I agree with you. I thought it was in there too, but then when I read it, but I don't know if we need to go to a cow. I think Trustee Pierce is right. And thank you for that. After I said a cow, I mean, this is a simple amendment.
Yeah.
To say no cannabis lounges,
Right.
bring it to the next board meeting in 2 weeks.
I'll rely on Cecilia.
And I'm still concerned about the location and the fact that there's a playground right there. So I think we need to also look at, do we want to, well, we're only gonna allow one, and this one obviously is gonna pass, so I guess it's a good point.
All right, anyone else with a comment before you call?
I do have one comment, I'm sorry. To Trustee Berman's point, yes, this gentleman came before the village board and did ask for the sun, the moon, and the stars. And we were very clear that night telling them, no, we do not want you to have a bar there. We do not want gambling there. We do not want a lounge. And we had no problem with a dispensary. Our problem was the use he asked for. And I told him he was disrespectful that night. And he's coming to us in good faith to ask for a dispensary this evening. There are going to be people that come before the village board that you don't like the way they approach, you don't agree with what they say, but when you sit in these seats, you have to make sure that you are representing the village, the people who live here, and you're doing the right thing for them. And putting emotion aside and understanding the business of the village, we really need to do the right thing. This is a revenue generator. If we don't do it, someone else is going to. And I believe that this is a smart move for the village to approve this evening. And I also think that this gentleman understands that there won't be a lounge. So that's all I have to say, Your Honor.
Right, see, we open this back up now. All right, one last time around here. All right,
we going?
yeah, we'll go, trustee Luther, trustee Dominiac, and then hopefully call a vote.
Michael, can I ask you a few questions? The planning and zoning, what was the vote for the planning and zoning board on this proposal?
It was unanimous. It was unanimous support.
And the village allows for one dispensary,
That's correct.
and other than this, there's no pending.
There's no application, there's no specific sites that have been discussed by any other perspective. And if the board does support this request, at that point, we comply with the one dispensary as outlined in the village ordinance.
And once again, this proposal does not request a lounge.
Yes, the applicant has made it quite clear he is not requesting a lounge. Thank you.
All right, we have a trustee Dominiac.
I just want to respond to a comment that was made by trustee Peterson about, we're doing what's best for the village. I think we're all up here trying to do what we think is best for the village. And, I think when you're dealing with an industry that's fairly new and is known to have some, and I'm not suggesting this in any way, shape or form about this gentleman, but, some ne'er-do-wells, I think making sure that we get into a situation with the right business partner, for lack of a better way to describe it, is important. My question to the attorney is, since we have a motion on the floor right now to approve this ordinance as written, waiving the second reading, does that mean we can't amend it? Because one thought I had is that we could specifically state that this specific building cannot be used for a lounge, nor can it be used for a bar or ever get a liquor license. Unless we came back later and gave them a liquor license if we changed their mind.
And that's what I was gonna say before. We could amend it. The substantive motion is the lowest priority of motions. However, trustee, if I may, what I was gonna say before was the application doesn't allow for this. It does not allow for a lounge. The application is on its face without a lounge. When the petitioner came in here before, he threw out an idea of what they would want and got feedback from this board, which was very clear that a lounge would not be wanted. So we could make an amendment to it. But right now they would have to go back anyway to amend this approval, this grant, if it were to be approved, this use to allow for that additional expansion of the use with the lounge if it were requested, but I don't know if they have a plan to do it. And not defending them, but I'm sure they've heard loud and clear that this board is not in favor. So it does not cover it.
But I think if we have an opportunity to be crystal clear, if that's what this board agrees to, that we don't come back later and ask for this, because we've already said you can't have it.
I would think that in some regards, our hands is tied, that if we revise this, then it would have to go back to planning and zoning for to vote on whatever we revise before we pass it.
Your Honor.
Yes.
When trustee Dominiac's through, can I have one more shot at the apple?
Yes.
Well, I've made my statement. And
Sure.
what I would like to see.
Okay. Trustee Pierce.
In regards to trustee Dominiac's request to put it on this item as a rider to the application for approval, I would have problems with that, because if I was the property owner, I would feel like being singled out because we don't enforce it across the village wide. So I would think that we would be better off just changing our ordinance as soon as possible, post haste, so that we don't allow somebody to say we're singling them out. Further, in this case, I want to support Trustee Berman and her opinion of how it was presented the last time and how this is going forward. And if we are in this type of an organizational partnership, that we have to look at the person and the people who are organizing this. And I have not seen any improvement in than the last time. It's still the same applicant, same situation, just coming down the tracks on 83 as fast as possible. And I think the village really needs to take a step on this, but I think it's time you vote and just be done with it.
Thank you. We're just talking logistics up here, so. All right.
I'll give one more comment because that last comment made no absolute sense. The gentleman didn't even say a word in his defense. So I just don't understand. If he wants to say a word to defend himself, he should have the right before we vote to defend himself, that it's not, yeah, he came up here and asked for the world. I get it. I would probably ask for the world too to try to make a dime. And he probably made a mistake last time asking for the world, and people got their butt hurt because he wanted too much. And he's new to Antioch and we're conservative, and let the guy speak instead of everybody trashing this gentleman. He didn't even say anything tonight. You know, if he wants to defend himself, give him the right to defend himself before everybody just sits there and says, this guy's not the right partner. It's just wrong. Let him make a statement.
I thought your defense attorney first. Yeah, so let me get a raise of hand to the trustees that would like to make another comment so we can move this along. So I because if we get circular here and keep going all night. So Trustee Berman wants another comment. I'll let the applicant say something, and then literally everybody gets one more bite of the apple and we're gonna call a vote. So Trustee Berman, go ahead.
As I stated before, it was stated that on February 2nd, he's not asking for a launch of this. The January 2023 Economic Development Report that was sent to this board stated that he was still seeking a dispensary with a lounge. That was last month. It is 4 months from the September 28th board meeting that we had. I just want to make that clear. And I'm hoping that the applicant does address it and answers that question. If he has any intentions in the future of asking us, again, coming before the board, planning zoning, for a cannabis, a consumption lounge.
Any other trustees?
I don't have any intentions of asking for consumption lounge. People who want to go to consumption lounge will go to Richmond. People want to go to consumption lounge will go to Winthrop Harbor. You guys don't need those taxes, that's fine. So that's where we are. That's the plan we have. You guys think there's some like massive world of real estate, and I'm coming here with some antagonistic way to find a piece of real estate that is unsuitable. The reality is it's the only piece of real estate in town. There's no inquiries anywhere. I'd be happy to go into a facility that was farther away from that was somehow created less traffic. So that's not the world we live in. Like, this is the only property that works. The other thing I want to point out is that, I've been operating cannabis dispensary since December of 2015. I'm not like a newbie to this game. I understand compliance. I don't have issues with facilities. I operate in really dense areas in the city of Chicago. I know what I'm doing. And I have the money to pull this off, which a lot of applicants don't, which is why even though there's 300 licenses out there, you're only seeing like 20 dispensaries get stood up. So, I'm sorry if I offended you guys because I have capitalist aspirations, because I like to have successful facilities that a lot of people want to come to. But I'm gonna adjust to what you guys want, and I hope you believe that that's what I've done.
All right, thank you. Can I call the vote? All right, roll call, please.
Pierce,
No.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Berman,
No.
Minnick,
No,
Mayor Gardner.
Yes, motion carries 4-3. All right, next item on the agenda is consideration and approval of a resolution authorizing the 2023 Chamber of Commerce events resolution number 23-06. Do I have a motion and a second? So moved. Motion trustee Bluthart,
Second.
second trustee Pierce. We have Ms. Barbara Porcher from the Chamber of Commerce to present her events for the calendar year of 2023. Jim Moran, who also has put together the special events listing. He is at a conference. I did not believe he's on Zoom, right? Jim's not on Zoom, is he? Moran?
He is not.
Okay, all right. Barbara, the floor is yours.
Thank you for allowing me to speak before you. I want to start by apologizing for not being here earlier in the year. It was my mistake, and I do apologize. In front of you, you have our 2023 annual Chamber events, which are almost identical to last year, except for some name changes. Are there any questions I can answer?
I only have one question. It's more for our staff. I noticed there was one walk in August on the Thursday night. Do we know, is our concert series over by that point, or is it the same time? Do we know when our concert's in the years? No?
I think the concerts are over by then.
Okay.
I did sit down with
Sure.
your director.
Okay, I was just trying to make sure it wasn't a double, cannibalizing each other.
In November for all the events. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Trustee Dominion?
I do have a question for you, Ms. Porch. In the document that we got from you that lists your events, you talk about the Grinch versus Santa brunch on November 18th. And then in this table that was put together, it's listed as November 25th.
I did not do the table.
Okay.
You
and I have had this discussion in the past. We make a big deal here in Antioch about Christmas the day after. We do the Christmas parade, we do Santa, we do the tree lighting. I'm really struggling with you doing a Christmas event the week before Thanksgiving. So I'm wondering how the board feels and if you'd be willing to move that to like the Sunday after Thanksgiving. And not the Saturday, because that conflicts with Small Business Saturday. And if moms are taking their kids to the brunch, then they're not shopping. So I can't vote for this if we have a Christmas event before we open up.
As I mentioned, I sat down with Mary from Parks and Maritza in November, went over the events. And we discussed not doing the event the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And I took it to my board and I gave them the several dates, one being the Sunday after, the Sunday before, or the Saturday before. My board did not want to do a Sunday event in the morning due to church.
What about the following Saturday then, which would be the first Saturday in
And first
December?
Saturday is normally very busy with Santa pancake breakfasts at our various schools. So again, that's not something we want to step on their toes either.
Well, I'm not gonna vote for this because we make such a big deal and Antioch is known, we get thousands of people come to our Christmas parade and we're gonna undermine that by having a Christmas event planned, but that's me.
Any other discussion on this? Questions?
So Santa Claus is coming to town before Santa Claus comes to town?
Yes,
That makes no sense.
well,
So can we-
they're over by lunch.
So can we approve the events subject to discussion on the Santa date breakfast, like approve all of them except that one, and have village staff and chamber staff figure out what works best in the schools?
If we pull this one
Okay.
out.
All right, can we tentatively pull this one out? Okay, all right. So I need a new motion, a new second.
I'll make a motion excluding the Santa Claus versus Grinch event for now, until staff and the chamber have more time to discuss it.
Need
That's
Robert.
an amendment, that is an.
Okay. Okay,
That's an
Well,
amendment.
you can amend the motion. But we need a second to accept the amendment, or let's just do it that way. Would someone says second, thank you. So there is a amendment to the motion, so we should vote on the amendment and then we vote on the substantive motion.
roll call on the amendment for moving the Santa breakfast date of November 17th. Roll call, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes,
Luther,
Just clarification, you said the 7th, shows it here on the 18th.
Not this week, go out.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Herman,
Yes.
Dominia,
Yes,
All right, 6 voting yes, amendment carries. Now on the motion to approve the events, roll call, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
wait a minute, this, to approve the events,
As
is it
amended.
still,
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
yes,
Luther,
Yes.
Herman,
Yes.
Dominia,
yes,
6 voting yes, motion carries. All right, thank you, Ms. Porch. Next, any administrator report? Any clerk report?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any trustee reports other than those submitted in writing? All right, then I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the regular meeting.
so moved.
Second.
Motion trustee Dominiac, second trustee Peterson, roll call, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Yeah, you get some swearing in. Yes.
Peterson,
yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Herman,
Yes.
Dominia,
Yes.
6 voting yes, motion adjourned. We will take a recess for 5 minutes and we will reconvene at say 7:45. All meeting order at 7:49. This is the committee of the whole meeting. Roll call, please.
trustee Pierce,
Present.
trustee Mason,
Here.
trustee Peterson,
Yes,
trustee
Here.
Luther,
Here.
trustee Berman,
Here.
trustee Dominia,
Here.
Fairground.
Present. Trustee Pierce is attending remotely. First item on the agenda is approval of the January 25th, 2023 committee of the whole meeting minutes as presented. There a motion and a second.
So moved.
Motion trustee Dominiac,
second,
second trustee Peterson, roll call, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Peterson,
abstain,
Luther,
Yes.
Herman,
Yes.
Dominia,
Yes.
All right, 5 voting yes, motion carries. Nothing on the mayoral report at this time. Citizens wishing to address the board. We have one individual that was to address the board.
Share screen, or we can, is he just gonna share?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. You weren't here last time for public comment. Were you in the room?
I didn't know where to sign up.
Got it. All right, so we don't need to read the spiel again. All right, go ahead, Lori.
Hadlets,
Floor is yours.
So my question on the pavilion, I didn't know, I know that I saw some back and forth on maybe the materials that were being used. I just wanted to know if it was being constructed of like an iron or a steel or something that was going to require a lot of upkeep and maintenance, like wood or PVC or anything like that. I didn't know what the final outcome was. I just wanted to know that.
Okay.
And if I'm not allowed to ask a question, then that's.
No, you're allowed to address the board, ask a question. Why do you we'll ask your questions or, and then we'll give a quick summary if we can. I think.
Oh, okay. So you want me to go on?
Yeah, there's a little bit different.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, yeah, go ahead.
So then the other question is, on the, dispensary. I have probably gone rounds at a meeting, a long time ago over, the vape stores and the vape shops. And I oppose those, yada, yada, yada. And I was not, too thrilled about a dispensary coming in. But I've since, my mindset has changed, raising teenagers, etc. What I have been noticing is that a lot of these dispensaries, I think there's one that's just come about in Wheeling. I think it was Wheeling that it is having a lounge. And I'm not for having a lounge, but I just don't understand, maybe down the line as we see how it grows. I don't want the village to cut its nose off to spite its face if for some 10 years down the line or 5 years down the line, all these businesses are generating, hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue. And once again, we've kind of missed out. So I didn't want Antioch to do anything to say no lounge, no lounge, no lounge. I get it up front right away. Yeah, no lounge. I don't approve of that either, but that's not to say down the line, maybe, once we see how other dispensaries operate and function and this and that, obviously people can't leave intoxicated. So I understand that too, but I just was concerned about that. The final thing I want to address is I commend Katrina Berman in her duty as a village trustee and her also positioning herself with the school. I know that there was a letter that was sent out on behalf of the board to address these issues going on in the community. And I commend her for being strong and, ceasing and desisting whatever she's been told to do. However, I don't know if you guys are aware of what's going on in the community.
Where you can just wrap up, yeah, just wrap up.
Okay.
That was the
I don't know.
buzzer.
Oh, I don't know if you're aware of what's going on within the community, but there are people in this community that are posting horrible stuff about not only Katrina, other community members related to the school issues and the school board. And I wanted to know if there's something that the board can do because it's creating a bad rap for Antioch. Huge bad.
Thank you. So we typically don't do back and forth. The only thing I'm gonna have Jim knock out real fast is he can tell you real fast what the material is because that's an easy question. And then the other stuff, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. So the pavilion is a cast iron and steel product that's dipped in nickel and then coated through a process to produce a very durable final product and finish. And through conversations with the manufacturer and the vendors, typically don't need to be recoated for a period of 20 or 25 years. So it may require some maintenance. But
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like wood or
no, one of the selection criteria, one of the reasons why this was recommended to be selected was because of its durability.
All right, thank you. So going backwards again briefly, since we're going to go into the Historic Preservation Commission updates, we have Mary McWilliams is present, correct? So we will ask the clerk to administer the oath of office to her based on the approval.
I, Mary McWilliams, having been appointed as member of the Historic Preservation Commission for the Village of Antioch in the County of Lake, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Historic Preservation Commissioner to the best of my ability.
Thank you. All right, without further ado, we have Ainsley Wonderling here to give us an update on the Historic Preservation Committee. I believe there is looks like a nice little map that they've designated some buildings, so she'll tell us what that is all about.
Arrange the furniture.
All right.
So first of all, I want to thank the board for creating the Historic Preservation.
The black
Committee.
screen.
We've been working for about a year and a half now, meeting monthly, except for a few times when we didn't have a quorum. We have been
taking pictures of all the businesses and houses, and we still have a couple more communities to do, so we're going to do neighbor, and we have to do North Main Street still, so. Ross is wonderful, he created this map. We have been filling out forms, talking about each of the structures, what the architecture is it significant, has it been modified? Who lived in it, what year was it built, as much information as we can get. And then Ross allowed me 200 characters. I thought I had 200 words to describe each building. 200 characters, you can't say a whole lot. So we are just going to show you 6 structures that are on the map. If I go away from them, you guys can't see, right? So we're going to start with 4 of the businesses and 2 of the homes. 910 Main Street is Williams Brothers Department Store, opened in 1981. The map that Ross created, you can see, okay. Will have the modern pictures and it will have the old pictures. The Historical Society just asked if we could, they want the pictures watermarked because it's one of the few ways we get revenue when people want copies of the pictures. And we've just investigated and have been told that they have to be watermarked, even though they're small images. There are programs out there that can make them big again. So at any rate,
Move those people over to the other side.
so move the Skyping people or whatever, the Zooming people. So it's really a nice progression. And then there will be 200 characters of text at the very bottom. The second building we're going to show you is the original State Bank of Antioch, 931 Main Street, which has nothing to do with the State Bank of the Lakes or the other State Bank of Antioch. Which was, we love this map. This map is just awesome.
Sorry, can you see which address is that?
931. Well, this is Larry's old building. It was built in 1902. And so the text on the right side shows the things that we talked about, the architecture style, when it was constructed, what it's constructed of, has it been modified. And we're continuing to add data to the map as we go along. The third one, and that's not exactly correct yet. It's a women's clothing store, and it was the bank when it was first built. Third one we're going to show you is 360 Lake Street, which is actually Kirkpatrick and Dahl now. It was the original Antioch house, which is a frame structure, and I do have a picture to put on there. We don't have a photograph. We have a painting that was done. It burned in the fire in 3, and the First National, it got rebuilt as a storefront. The First National Bank was formed in 1926 and bought the building and redid it. So these are ones that we have multiple pictures on. Unfortunately, the home pictures that we have, we don't have a lot of ancient ones. And the ones that we do have, curiously enough, were thrown out by the village assessor in days gone by. Steve Smouse had a big handful of them and they were all going to be thrown out. So we have some, but we don't have a lot. So next one, 955 Victoria is the Church of Christ Science, or the Disciple, or the Christian Science Church. And it was built by a woman named Pearl Poles, who was the wife of the butcher who had the shop right in the front. And it was built in 1928, and it served the congregation until 1966 when they built their structure out on the hill, which is now the Antioch Recovery Center.
That's the one that's a hair salon now, right?
It has been a beauty parlor ever since. Yep. Under different owners. Then the 2 houses that we just wanted to show you how this map works. And Michael has a lot more nuances with the program, but 999 Victoria Street. Is actually a Sears Craftsman bungalow, could be ordered from the Sears catalog, and we have many Sears houses in town, and they are definitely
structurally significant, architecturally significant to the town, and we hope to landmark a lot of these buildings that we've been showing you, along with a lot more, but it will require the consent of the owner of the building. This Craftsman bungalow was built between 1922 and 1925, and it was built by Joe Horton, who was an heating oil or we got one more, 1037 Victoria Street. No, not quite, Kitty portion. But we're gonna be able to do this for all the houses, except that we just don't have old pictures of a lot of the houses. So the stone house that Michael calls haunted, wait, the castle, what do you call it, Michael? The haunted house. This was built was present in 1897. It was built by a man named Charles Blunt, who came in from Grass Lake. He had sold property and he constructed this, and it was forever known as Blunt's Folly because they thought it was such an eyesore to the town, but structurally significant. It has not been modified. The old picture only goes back to the 70s, which is what the assessor had, but we have a corner of it in the picture of when they dedicated. The first St. Peter Church was immediately next to it to the south, and so you can see part of this building in there when they redid that. So the text of the history is at the very, very bottom, like 200 characters, right, Michael? Right. And then, yeah, once found. So this is the map. This is what Historic Preservation's been working on. We're now getting pictures of Ed Bloss's house, which is the house up here, North Avenue and Main Street. Anyway, if we know the families, we start bugging them and they're giving us the full picture. So this is something that no other community has, an interactive map. We are going to ask Ross to watermark the pictures, so it's the only way we can get them, the old pictures preserved. But does anybody have any questions? It's not live yet. When are you gonna make it live?
Once we're done.
Once we're done with it. And but it's really fabulous. We've enjoyed working on it. We're very happy Mary's joined us. Unfortunately, Casey had too many other obligations and had to withdraw. And Mary has had experience with dealing with historic preservation commissions because you redid a home in Chicago. So she knows what it's like from the other side. If you want to landmark your house, that's what we're up to.
Thank you. I see a walking tour in your future.
Oh, we love that.
Questions? Trustee Pierce, did you have anything you want to?
I think they're doing a wonderful job and that they should be proud of themselves. I'm excited to see them moving forward. And I hope we get some things historic landmarked.
We hope to, and we hope to start with possibly the meeting house right away, 1863. So, and we're still working with the grade school. That's gonna talk to them again this afternoon. They came over to the board, but that's for another day. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, are you done, Scott?
I'm done.
All right, Trustee Mason.
Okay, what you should do is suggestion. Is you showed me, and I forgot how to do it, just do it like a YouTube video page. And how to go on Google to library and pull up old newspaper articles. I think people would really enjoy that.
We do put a post on Facebook every week. And in fact, I was going to talk to Mary after the meeting because the one that's going up this weekend is when they had the Lions Club had the Winter Ice Carnival on Antioch Lake or Lake Antioch, depending on who you talk to, in 1941. And it mentions all kinds of stuff going on your hill. They had flares along the hill. They had events during the day that included skate races, figure skating, barrel jumping, but they also had sulky harness racing on the lake.
Gosh.
And we actually have a movie that was taken by Ed Moss. But we I can't find it to get it on because we moved everything. Anyway, so it will, but I put on it, I had on there that it was on the site of where one of the current village trustees lived, but I took that off.
off, so it doesn't say that anymore, but know that it's your house. And, so it's gonna be, that's this week's post. Next week's post, we did Ron Riley last week, the disc jockey that,
It was a
grew up-
great story.
that grew up in Antioch. So,
Get those newspaper.
yeah, well, the newspaper, we would, that's one that we thought about doing.
Yeah,
too,
just do it, show this is how you get.
But then,
I would be
then people
all
don't come in and want to help. We like to help. Okay.
That's it.
Well, yes, all the Antioch newspapers are available online and they are object character recognition OCR.
Yeah, I'm glad.
You can look up, yeah, you can look up Lash.
No problem.
The real Mr. Masick that was in town long before this one. Any other questions?
Trustee
Okay,
Peterson,
so,
anybody else? I know we over here,
I
anything?
just love it. I think it's great.
well, thank you to the board for giving us the opportunity to do it. And thank you for letting Russ use his talents, because this map is extraordinary. And Michael, can you back it up so they can see how many things we've got on there? All those little pins, those are all the ones that are done. So we've got Lake and Victoria, Spafford, Hardin, Bishop. We're working on Ida.
Right.
That's wonderful.
And for the record, this, if we had hired a consultant to do this survey, it would easily been probably somewhere between $50,000 to $100,000 of hired consultant. So we have an HPC that's actually doing all the legwork, and as Ross's assistants, we're all doing it in-house.
And it was, we started with two things. We started with the Groneke report that was done in the eighties.
Yes.
In the eighties, they did a historic survey. The Historical Society also did a survey back in the nineties as part of a countywide initiative, but it wasn't nearly as extensive. So we put the two of those together, and that gave us a basis to get going. Plus, we've got all the pictures.
So,
Just a few.
my question is, and I think you addressed it, you said you're doing Victoria and Spafford. I went for a walk one night with Wally and Cheryl Henning, and
Yes.
they told me who lived where,
Yes.
and that was very cool.
There are many Sears houses over there too, which surprised me. I think the Penny house, there's nobody in the Sears house, which
How far south are you gonna go? You're gonna because there's
Well-
homes on Main Street, you
Well,
know, like the Dragonfly and.
yes, that's all the way down, and I don't know if we're gonna put the pictures on. We have pictures of houses that have been raised or moved. And I'd like to put those on, even though there's nothing there, there's a vacant lot, or the White House that's just outside the high school parking lot on the east side. Actually was on Main Street, and it has the same street address, but they backed it up a block when they put on the addition. So houses like that. And then there's one in David Street that used to be where the yoga studio is, and because they move those houses all over the place all the time.
Oh, and I like the idea of the newspapers. Just a real quick story. I was in a museum in Washington DC that's now closed, called the Museum. And there was an old newspaper, and I started reading it, and it was in the section by the FBI, and they were talking about Babyface Nelson. And my family, he actually ended up at what is now my cousin's funeral home. It was his grandfather that owned it. When they found the body, they took it there. But the funny part of the article, as I was reading it, was they referred to the fact that he hung out up here and hung out with the known to be corrupted Antioch officials.
Well, I used to say that they would make the booze out here, and then the guys would come up from the city and they would put it under they had tanks under the seats of their cars. Take it back into the city. So he knew all the layers, and we're learning more about walkways under the streets and things. So we have to go on a tour of those, and there's just so much history.
Very cool.
So exciting. So yeah, the newspapers.
For all that work.
I
Thank
don't
you.
want to take them.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, next item on the committee of the whole is a continuing discussion regarding the future downtown park property located at Main and Depot. We have Andy Dogan on Zoom. And I know for those that in the audience, we did see, I believe we're going to be looking at some revised renderings of the, what do we want to call it? The cafe or building on the property. So Andy, it's your floor.
Great. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me tonight. I appreciated everybody's time on Friday at your quarterly meeting. I thought we got some really great feedback in terms of what you liked, what you didn't like, what some of our influences were. And tonight we want to share with you where we currently are and how we've evolved a couple of these concepts in the few days since we saw you last. So just to quickly review, when we did just that real informal straw poll at Friday's meeting, the consensus among everybody in the room was towards the top two concepts or top two left concepts on this particular slide. One that's I would say is kind of a craftsman style, and one that it's hard to label in terms of a style, but really evokes some of the architecture of Central Park and some of the other great American urban park structures. So,
Aaron, and maybe you're going to get into the individual pictures, but can you, we're quite a ways away from the TV screen. Can you increase the size of the picture?
I'll do my best, sure.
Thank you.
How's that?
Better.
Okay. So, again, these top two images were the ones that on the left were the ones that we were looking at. Again, a craftsman style, and then kind of a what we'd say is something in the character of great American urban parks. So, with those two in mind, you asked us to make a few refinements. And asked us to look at both of those concepts with not quite the huge 20 or 24 foot overhang coming out from the cafe windows that would provide shelter, but something a little bit more modest to provide a little bit of shelter for people queuing up and a little bit of shelter in the event of weather. So everything you'll see tonight incorporates those options. I also wanted to bring up the plan here very quickly to let everybody know that we also did hear a question or a comment asking about more plumbing fixtures in the restrooms. And through a small change in the plan, I'm just showing an area that's sort of highlighted in a dashed red line here. If we're able to take a little bit of that space away from the storage and electrical room, we still have all the space we need in there, but we're able to get another fixture in each restroom. So I think that's a win. We get another fixture, we don't increase the size of the building. Without further ado, let's get to the exterior ideas. Again, these are still all very conceptual. They're sketches. Our idea for a craftsman direction would be to have what we call these battered or slanted walls. This would be mostly a stone building. The projection or that little shelter element would come out about 12 feet, have a little bit of that barrel vaulted element on it, and then potentially introduce some wood deck underneath, some shingles on the fascia to really evoke that particular style. And we think that this particular massing, the stone that we're using, really works very well with the rest of the park. The other option, I would say, or actually we're calling it option 2 and 2A, you asked us to take a look at this option with that I think has more traditional forms, is more reminiscent of that urban park architecture, both with the cupola and without. So here we're showing a sketch that's really a variation. It's the same projection, that same sheltered area as in the previous concept. This happens to not have that cupola element. And then we did one with it, just so you can see the effect that has. So our take is that it does add something. It really starts to add a focal point, especially because there's a bit of an elevation rise from where you enter the park to where this will be. It does kind of draw your eye upward in a nice way, but we did want to show you both options. So with that, as we did last time, I'm not sure how visible this is for you all on the dais here, but we wanted to put all three options up on the screen and most importantly, answer any questions, see if we can move closer towards a consensus. We're not asking you to vote tonight. We know this is committee of the whole. We're looking for feedback and continuing to narrow that funnel, as we say. So I will be quiet and turn it over to all of you for questions and comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Trustee Pierce.
I'm still, I'm more the traditionalist, I guess. I still like option 2 with a cupola. I think if you build it without the cupola, it doesn't have the right balance. And I stick with my opinion of option 1. Looks like something in the national park at the ranger station to get information. So I'd prefer number 2 still. That's it.
Thank you. Trustee Mason.
Yeah, the bottom one wins. Unless you, yeah, and I agree with Trustee Pierce. You gotta put the tie on the building.
Trustee Peterson.
I agree. I like option 2 with the cupola. It's beautiful. It'd be perfect right there. I like it with the school across the street with their little cupola on top, and I like the church across the street the other way. It blends, it's great, and I think it'll work perfectly.
Trustee Bluthart.
On option 2, that's my favorite, but we had discussed shortening the, I guess, what's the front portion called? Is that shorter in the picture? I can't tell.
It had 2B.
Oh, it is shorter, okay.
Yes.
No, but then definitely option 2 with cupola.
Yes, just to clarify, that is shorter by about 12 feet from what you previously saw.
I just couldn't tell from here how that was shortened or not.
Sure.
Trustee Berman.
I'm kind of torn right now. Friday I was leaning more towards option 1. I still think I'm leaning towards that, but I need to look. I think I need to see them closer.
Sure. Okay.
So
We'll email this to everybody. That's it. Trustee Dominiac.
Well, I'm gonna be the contrarian as usual. I don't like the cupola only because I feel like because the church has a cupola, the school has a cupola, that we now will have a little forest of cupolas. And I just think that, you know, the pulling your eye up, you've got the peak, I think that works. So, you know, obviously the consensus of the board is to go with cupola. I just think it's too much. But I don't like option 1.
All right.
What are
Ainsley here.
what are the sides made out of? I mean, it looks like a long.
So the question was, what is the facade made of? You know, what is the material of the siding? If it's, you know, brick or stone or wood?
Great question. We're looking at for option 2, primarily brick with some stone accents, but I think we'll want to look at it a couple different ways and get your take on what you like the best, show you some renderings and show you some actual samples of materials. So to be determined, but definitely masonry. The material you see underneath the part of the shelter that comes out, we imagine being a stained tongue and groove deck. We could look at something like a PVC product for ease of maintenance, but even the wood does hold up very well underneath this, and we get great warranties on the finishes.
Another question.
Yeah.
The arch of the overhang looks kind of Tudorish. Does it have one support going up? I can't really tell. So the arch has.
Andy, so the question was the arch looks a little Tudorish, so she was wondering if there is one support beam going up or multiple support beams from that arch.
Great question. We just have the one support beam coming up from that arch. What we're looking at right now, we have to we have to figure out the exact means in which we structure this. But one method that is actually pretty successful and doesn't get it too heavy is to look at some lighter steel tie rods that give the structural, the lateral support it needs within there, so it doesn't become too heavy. So I guess put another way, you'd have that framing that you see towards the outside of it, and then some lighter structure inside, so it doesn't seem like it's this dark, shadowy forest of framing.
Thank you. All right. Hopefully that was helpful.
Can I?
Sure, you guys are the historical committee, so I want to make sure it was historical.
All right, so I've been reading.
You know, just because people on Zoom, I'm sorry, I should have told Easy too. I was repeating the question.
Oh. I've been reading all the new material that I received on Monday, and I learned that 2 Gothic Revival style structures are on that corner. The Methodist Church and the Lakes Historic Society. And I'm hoping that we can have an artist rendering of the park with those buildings, because that's what you're going to be seeing when you're driving down Main Street, those 2 buildings and then this new park. And it's like picking out a paint color without seeing the house. I'm not sure how we can choose a style without seeing what is surrounding it and how it's going to be sitting and how the little cupolas match or don't match, and how the materials play off the other buildings. I would love to see it be coordinating and purposeful, that we put this park next to these 2 historic buildings. And whatever we build there is going to be complementary and not competing with it.
No, that's a good point. No, it's a good point. And so,
And the same with the gazebo.
yeah, we need that, like, we have a top view, we have a view of the park. We need like a Bob Ross design, like all the stuff in the background, so we all the trees.
But it's one thing to see where it's sitting.
Sure.
Another thing to have one of these images pop down.
Sure, I think we can work at that. I think we can work at that with, Lakota and the architect. I think it's a good idea to get the view of the park plus I mean, I know there's some of that with some skylines, but maybe not the exact background features. I get that.
I think that's a really good idea. It's a good suggestion, and I would just want, you don't have to discuss it maybe tonight, but forward me if you'd like to see a specific view from the south, from the east or the west, or just capturing maybe both of those buildings, from a vantage point that would show all 3 or something like that.
I would think from the southeast looking northwest, so you see everything.
Sure.
Your gazebo, the bathroom, and the 2.
And maybe we could do one with them about the book that might help me to see it.
I think it's
Perfect.
And maybe a Gothic revival style instead of a different style.
All right, well, and I think that, like I said, I appreciate, Andy, I think you had a question. You started to talk.
Oh, no, not at all. I was just going to say, those are great comments. And I just want to emphasize to everybody tonight that we are still at a point where we're still in the funnel, where we're making directions, building consensus, and this by no means is to say we're done and this is the building. This is the point from which we depart and continue to show you more refinement and get more comment. That iterative process is how we create things that meet your expectations and become architecture the community is really proud of. So I can assure everybody in the room that you'll start to see these images in context here within the next couple of weeks. Now that we are starting to get more consensus on the major pieces of the park, we'll be able to work with Lakota to integrate our computer imagery and our models together and show you those views to really get you comfortable with the details of this. And give you as much information as you can to give us good feedback. So all great information and all great comments tonight. We really appreciate it.
All right, perfect. And as promised, we will keep this on the agenda every week until we have a general contractor, I guess, or every 2 weeks. So I appreciate it. And yeah, we will circulate these renderings to the board. If you could, if we don't have any, you can make sure you send it over. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time tonight.
Your Honor, can I just respond to Ainsley real quick on one item?
Sure.
She mentioned the Tudor style there. I kind of envision it kind of matching up to the arches in the Brook Memorial, more of a wooden beam that supports the roof, or that, you know, almost like church beams, I guess you'd call them. So just if you're looking at designs, take a look at that and see what it looks like. Thanks.
All right, last but not least, we started this last time. We had a discussion regarding change of use business licensing. We have Mr. Garrigan.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. This matter comes back before the village board. As you recall, back in November, staff did come before the board with some discussions about changes of use permits. One of our biggest challenges for staff is having businesses move into new spaces without staff knowing that they have proceeded to take an occupancy. Unfortunately, sometimes we find out that they're not in compliance with the village's building codes. Sometimes they're not in compliance with the village's fire code. And sometimes, in fact, they're not even in compliance with the village's zoning ordinance. So we thought it would be prudent to start a modest initiative to require a new business that comes into the village or a business that moves into another space to be required to have a, what we call a change of use occupancy permit. We suspect that this would be a modest program, probably frankly no more than 25 to 50 permits would be issued per year. We just simply don't have that many new businesses either coming to the village or even moving to new locations. It would give us some additional jurisdiction, some additional really tracking, and more importantly, to find out who the new owners are with all the applicable life safety information, contact information. So this is not only for zoning, but it's also for life safety purposes. So we wanted to start a more modest proposal, but there was a good discussion at the November meeting about a discussion about, you know, does it make sense to also require a business license permit? We do actually have a business license ordinance that, to be honest, we have not implemented, or we have not been applying. It's somewhat obsolete, passed back in 1976. So the board asked staff to basically do some due diligence or some additional research on business licenses. I provide you extensive information about surrounding communities, a summary that I think it's fair to say that most communities do require a business license, specifically regards a reference to our surrounding communities. If you look at our nearest neighbors, Grays Lake does require a business license. Fox Lake does require a business license. Lakeville requires a business registration. Lindenhurst requires a business license. And Zion does require a business license. Also, taking this out to a more regional analysis, some of the communities based on a survey that was completed by the village of City of Northbrook. You can see Arlington Heights, Buffalo Grove, Des Plaines, Glencoe, Glenview, Highland Park, Niles, Northbrook, Palatine, Park Ridge, all require business licenses. So I provided the board an extensive list of what communities do require business licenses. What staff is requesting at this point, we are requesting, because we're in the process of implementing new software, ClearGov. It may very well make sense somewhere down the road to implement a business license. But we would request that we proceed, if the board supports this, start with a change of use permit, and somewhere down the road, perhaps again consider a business license once we have all the software glitches ironed out, whether that's 6 months or a year. Obviously, a business license would be required for every business in the village of Antioch. Or depending if the board wanted to modify that, they could modify that. That's subject to what we are allowed to license. Obviously, professional offices like a lawyer's office, we cannot license by state statute. But the vast majority of businesses, we could theoretically license consistent with what many surrounding communities do. So it's kind of a bifurcated discussion, a bifurcated request. Again, we're requesting a support for a change of use permit. And if there is support for somewhere down the road, a business license, we would request that be kicked down the road for 6 months so we can again implement our ClearGov software and iron out all our electronic permitting process, which we hope to start in mid-March. Not only for all permitting, whether it's basically inspecting a golf cart, our apartment registrations, our building permits, all of this will be incorporated in our ClearGov software. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Can I just ask a question of clarification? So is your suggestion that, or maybe not suggestion, but is your question, if we have this change of use permit or ordinance in the interim until we come up with a business license?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, any discussion? Just
No, I think it's needed, so. No
Just-
discussion.
Thank you.
So which people we can't license?
Anything is licensed by the state of Illinois.
So, does that include me?
I believe insurance brokers we can't license.
Okay, so then I can make a comment. I just want to make sure I can comment that I wouldn't be, so. The question then would remain, because you see it on Shark Tank all the time. You're gonna hit and Marilyn Scheinfeld started this back in the day, and we had a group of business people send her tea bags, and she got mad at getting 1,000 tea bags, taxation without representation, because she had no plan of the use of the $100. Because you can tax doesn't mean you do. I think we're duplicating work. Fire department does it. So as an example, the BP gas station, fire department comes in there, they do the inspection, they charge $1,000. Now we're gonna do the same stuff they do. We've got the insurance companies, insurance service offices, they do safety inspections. So they come in and do, hopefully, in the village, I think, would have it, the same thing through the insurance carrier. They do safety inspections. So what this is doing is duplicating services, charging. You got people working that we don't know about. You see it all the time in Shark Tank. How you doing this? I'm doing it out of my house. So you're only seeing the ones on the surface. So you're getting those people, and the people that are working out of their garage making who knows what, that are selling them on Amazon or wherever they're selling them, that who knows what they're selling until someone calls them in. They could be making some name. They're getting scot free. I mean, it's just, I get the idealistic, but I'm gonna go back, if we had a chamber that wasn't, that supported all services and didn't draw red lines and saying, we're only gonna do with retail on the map, you other people, whoever you are, you're not allowed to drink out of our water fountain, to use that language, because I would be a chamber member, but what gain would I get out of spending my money with the chamber when I can't get on their map, when I can't get part of their, even being at anything, spending $300 with the chamber that I'm not allowed because I'm a service industry, I'm not a retail industry, I'm redlined. And I could use a different word that other people use, but I'm not going to. It's just, I think the chamber doesn't do the job. Fire department comes in and they check extension cords, and we're gonna do duplicate services. So I think some people will pay it that are visible, and some people are gonna get away, the people doing stuff out of their garage selling. It just a volunteer registration you can start with, but I just don't see it, I don't know what the fees are for a gas station. It's gotta be enormous what they pay for EPA. I pay probably about $1,200 a year in fees, just in license fees with the state and the federal government. So I don't know what other people pay. Restaurants, would that be considered? They pay license fees.
Well, we
So
do
they
require,
would-
we
they
do
would get
require,
us-
yes, we do require, licensed restaurants to register right now. It's a nominal fee. And I think my staff report, I think we're proposing a modest fee of $50. I mean, to be fair, I know the fire department has been somewhat frustrated. They've actually requested that we have some type of permit process because it's very challenging for them to basically track businesses. So I've been working with actually John, the chief, on having some type of permit process, whether it's a change of use or ultimately a business license. They have requested that we work on some type of review permit process because they have challenges tracking new businesses. It's been one of their biggest challenges. So in some ways, we see this as a partnership with the fire department. And again, we're not proposing $1,000 fee. We're proposing a very modest, a nominal fee of $50.
Yeah, just some people start out down $50 might be modest, but might be huge to someone that's not making a whole lot of money, selling stuff out of a downtown store. And the people that aren't paying for it, that are doing the same stuff and selling the same products are downtown and aren't paying it. And we just heard that people are complaining on the food trucks that they can't pay the $75 to run the food trucks. So it's just, if they can't pay $75 to run the food trucks for the insurance, or they can't get the insurance to run the food trucks, now we're gonna throw this over to businesses. It doesn't make sense when I can get insurance on a food truck, I mean, in 2 seconds. But they don't wanna pay $75 for food truck insurance. They just don't get it.
Thank you, trustee Peterson.
I don't have any comments right now.
Trustee Luther.
I'm in favor of this, and I'm in favor of business licenses. And I think we need to get to that point as soon as possible, because we, as the village, need to make sure what businesses are operating in our village, follow code enforcement, and everything else. We talk a lot about code enforcement lately, and this is a step in that direction. And I'm not worried about the fee as much as getting this in place. So even if we grandfather in existing businesses and didn't charge them a fee or whatever, it's not about the fee and the collection of it. It's about getting this information and giving us some code enforcement backup and we need to know what's going on in our business. And so I think we need to move forward on this and progress on it as quick as we can to business licensing, in my opinion.
Thank you, trustee Berman.
I have a question for Mr. Gargan. As far as the other towns that are doing this, do you know, have these other towns, how has it been received by businesses in those towns? And if it were to be, are the other towns, is it a, stated, not as, if they chose to do it, if it was, yeah.
It's a requirement.
It is, okay.
You see that there's a few exceptions, but vast majority of communities do require some type of business license. As I think I've said before, the board, when new businesses call me, they're all surprised that we don't require a business license, or it's almost like they can't believe it. So we do require registration for certain businesses like restaurants. They are required to register on an annual basis. But we have never enforced a business license requirement. So most community, I think there's also a learning curve with businesses, working with business community to make sure it's not onerous. Again, we don't want permits or bureaucracy for the sake of bureaucracy or permits for the sake of permits. We see this as having hopefully the ability to work with businesses and making sure that they comply with all the life safety requirements and zoning. There's nothing worse than a business that moves into a building that's not zoned. That causes hardship for everybody because we want to work with businesses. So then we have to bring them back to the process, sometimes they get a special use or variance. You've seen that in the past year, unfortunately, and that's what we're trying to avoid that. And having some type of permit or license, hopefully will minimize, businesses moving in, because not all businesses do any due diligence. You'd be surprised how many businesses don't call the village and ask us what do they need to do, with regards to whether building permits or whether it's the right zoning. And after the fact, we learn that they don't comply with the building codes or life safety issues or zoning issues. And that's also hardship, for not only the business, but also for staff.
I agree with the comments that trustee Bluthart made.
Thank you, trustee Dominiac.
I think we should move forward on this. I do believe that there's benefits from multiple angles. One that comes to my mind is when we tried to survey businesses in the past, half of them, we don't have their contact information, we don't have their email addresses, and then people accuse us of not inviting them to participate, but it's because we're hamstrung or people have to walk up and down the street passing things out because we don't have contact information. So I think that's a benefit. I think the fee is nominal. I think if a business is coming into this town and they can't plan for $50 as part of their business plan, then maybe they're not capitalized enough to be successful in the first place. I would recommend, and I can appreciate your comment about wanting to maybe hold this off for 6 months. I would like to see the ordinance that includes a change of use permit and the business license being written now, but you could potentially put in language that says the business license part of the ordinance goes into effect January 1 of 2024. That way it's in there, it's codified, and doesn't get lost. So that would be my recommendation.
All right, thank you. Michael, you have any comments?
No, I think I have pretty good input.
Trustee Peterson?
I wanted to ask, you said something about special use permit. So if someone wants to move in, we wouldn't need to go before planning and zoning and get a special use permit or
No,
this alleviate that?
no, I'm sorry, I apologize if I confused you. Obviously, the zoning ordinance says it's a special use permits required. They're required to come before the planning commission and village board. What I was trying to say or to articulate is unfortunately we've had like a Teamsters, it was a perfect example where they moved into a building that didn't have the right zoning. We had to take them through the zoning process. We had to actually go through a special use process and to give them the required, because it was that type of use. We had to take them through the process because they moved, unfortunately, into a building that didn't have the right zoning.
Okay, so this will alleviate that. They're gonna have to come before you and say, we want to do this. Okay.
Correct. So I can tell you, this is what, Teamsters has been a great example. I've said you would have been required to do a special use. That would have avoided that whole unfortunate confusion.
Well, it sounds, I'm in favor of it to go forward too.
All right, anything else? Thank you, Mr. Garrigan. Any other business that anyone would like to discuss?
Your Honor, executive session.
Okay, we have one request for executive session from trustee Pierce. What's it, what category?
Property acquisition.
Okay. Any other requests for executive session?
I don't have a request for that, but I just had one other thing I wanted to toss out. We're spending an incredible amount of time talking about this property on the corner, which is so critically important to transforming the village. But right across the street from it is an eyesore. And the beautification committee has come up with some ideas. So I'd like us to bring that forward, perhaps at another meeting, the ideas that they have to the Parkway Bank property to do some things, particularly as we move into the summer, because our farmers markets are out there and it's not safe because everything is, there's concrete, there's grass, there's gravel. So if we could put that on the agenda to talk about some ideas for that corner and how we might be able to implement something this year, that would be terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I have a request from trustee Pierce to go into executive session to discuss property acquisition. Since we're going into executive session, I'm going to add litigation to that list of items. So I need a motion and a second to go into executive session with no further business to take place after executive session. Motion trustee Blucher.
Second.
Second trustee Dominiac. Roll call please.
Here.
Aye.
Mason.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Rutherford.
Yes.
Berman.
Yes.
Minnick.
Yes.
6 voting yes, we're going into executive session at 8:47 with no further business to take place afterwards.